On this episode of Lapeef, Let's Talk.
Things fell in a relationship. Who do people lose respect for?
I think it depends because culturally, I don't know if it's the same in your guys' style, but culturally for us, we call women the glue of the family. So if the women are not being the glue that's needed and the family falls apart, a lot of times they look at the women like, why didn't you keep the family together? Why weren't you what you needed to be? Why did you run the man off? Because men don't leave typically easily. Usually men will stay through thick and thin. It takes a lot to make a man run off. So typically we look at the women and say, what did you do wrong? How did you run off this man? But Anton also has a point with men. They are the ones who run their family. So if things aren't taken care of and the whole thing falls apart, yeah, people will look at the man bad. But as a woman and understanding how women talk to one another, we get hit with heavy guilt trips for letting the family fall apart.
I also think you have to think about the fact that, for one, this is all subjective, like I don't think there's a right or wrong answer, because if you're around a bunch of women and you're on social media and you see a whole bunch of comments where women are blaming the men, then you're going to think, oh, men are to blame. But if you have another set of experiences that you can call on where people are blaming the women, then you think people are blaming the women. So I think it's very subjective. And I also think, people have biases. People tend to side with the person that they know. So for instance, if Rilla got divorced and he's talking to all his friends, then his friends are going to think, okay, well, I know what he told me about his ex. So she must, she caused the divorce.
Clearly, you don't know how men communicate.
You're saying
1,000 with each other. We don't mince words. We don't trauma bond. We don't try to make each other feel good. We tell the absolute God-given truth, and we just be real with each other and be like, fam, you're going to have to get your manhood up. Get your life together, bro. Get your money up, whatever. We don't sit here and say, oh, let me feel your back and make sure your shoulders are up and nice. We don't do that. We just get straight to the thick of things. We don't make each other feel good. We be real with each other.
Let her finish. Go ahead.
Yeah, people always, men, you might think that, but people are going to tell their side of the story. Okay, that's just the truth. They're going to tell it how they think it played out, and they are not going to tell everything. They might, a man might tell you, okay, I cheated, I messed up, but let's say the complaint was that he wasn't doing his part at home, or, whatever the complaint was, the man is going to say, just like women, we're going to say it from our perspective. And sometimes you think you're right and you could be wrong. Like a man could say, yeah, she was tripping. But no, maybe she wasn't tripping. People are just biased. I think it depends on the person. Same thing with women. Your girlfriends might tell you part of the story, but maybe not all of it. And people tend to make people culprits based off of what they want to believe. Really.
Okay. What are your thoughts when relationships fail? When things fail in a relationship, who do people lose respect for?
Actually, I thought that Chicago, Ashley, and Anton made really good points, because on one level, like my first thought was men in general will be looked at, because you brought up that losing the house scenario. And I know that a lot of times men are thought of as like the breadwinners. So just from like a very bird's eye view, I think a lot of people would say, what was going on with that man? So like I agreed with what Anton said about that, but I liked what Ashley said about bias in terms of, people that are closer to the situation than that. People who may know more about the couple from one side or the other. Talking to your girlfriends, they're like, oh, it was his fault or whatever. I don't know what men talk about necessarily, but maybe. Anton said no. And I wanted to ask Anton, like, how did he think that a man would respond in that type of situation if everything were 50-50, like JR said earlier, and then like, they lose the house. So it's like they're both making the same amount of money per year, let's say. They're both paying half of the bills. Like, how do you think men would respond? Because I think this question is
We don't care. We don't care about the details.
But what do
We
you
don't care about the details.
But what do you think a man would say? Like, to a friend, like, let's say a friend came up to you like, man, Anton, and you knew his whole story with the 50-50 and all that.
Why was you dependent on the woman in the first place in order to make sure that your household was straight?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Like, it always comes back to, yo,
Yeah.
What is you doing, bro?
That's definitely what my brothers and my dad would absolutely say. And that's why my first thought was it falls on the man in terms of that house situation. But I definitely understood what Ashley and Chicago said too, because it's just different levels to it. Yeah. So
Honestly, I don't know what kind of guys are having conversation with other guys in Ashley's purview. I'm not sure who these gentlemen are or what their conversations are, but I don't know guys. Listen, guys will hold each other down when it comes to the competition. Like, let's just have a hypothetical situation, right? Let's just say me and Rilla, right? Me and Rilla are going to hold each other down when it comes to, yo, don't be playing my man, whatever, I'll be your wingman, whatever it is, however we got to move. But when it comes to me and Rilla having a conversation behind the scenes, I'm gonna be like, yo, what you doing, fam? Just get your bread up, get your life together or whatever. And I'm not saying this specifically to Rilla because obviously it's just a hypothetical situation. But my point is that we don't mince words. We don't make each other feel good. We not here for, to give you a pat on the back and give you a participation trophy when it comes to having real conversation amongst each other. We like, yo, why you always broke when we go out, bro? Like, ain't no sharing, ain't no figuring it out. We on some, let's get our bread up. We all should be moving in the same direction. And why you slacking, bro? And it's the same thing when it comes to our households. It's the same thing when it comes to relationships. It's the same thing across the board. Yo, be accountable, get your bread up, get your money up, get your manhood up, start being stronger. Why you being a simp? All of this other type of stuff. We don't give a piss about that woman. Like, because we understand that the woman moves according to how the man operates. So, and if you dealing with an unruly chick, the question is, why is she even in your space in the first place? It's not hey, what's wrong with her? We're not trying to figure out what's wrong with her. We're trying to figure out what's wrong with you. Why you even let her in the house in the first place?
Yeah, it's understandable. I'm going to get Ameera's perspective. Ameera, when things fail in a relationship, who do people lose respect for?
I think it depends because culturally, I don't know if it's the same in your guys' style, but culturally for us, we call women the glue of the family. So if the women are not being the glue that's needed and the family falls apart, a lot of times they look at the women like, why didn't you keep the family together? Why weren't you what you needed to be? Why did you run the man off? Because men don't leave typically easily. Usually men will stay through thick and thin. It takes a lot to make a man run off. So typically we look at the women and say, what did you do wrong? How did you run off this man? But Anton also has a point with men. They are the ones who run their family. So if things aren't taken care of and the whole thing falls apart, yeah, people will look at the man bad. But as a woman and understanding how women talk to one another, we get hit with heavy guilt trips for letting the family fall apart.